Basu aliens laughed at ancient human gun, until it fired. The starship Titan glided silently through space, its engines humming softly as it approached the massive alien vessel. Inside the ship's meeting room, Captain Han stood tall, his uniform pressed perfectly for this historic meeting. Today was humanity's first official contact with the Mok Empire, an alien race known for their advanced technology. "Remember, everyone stay calm," said Han to his crew. "These aliens might look strange, but they are here for peace talks." Lieutenant Song clutched a small wooden box in her hands. Inside was a 300-year-old pistol that once belonged to a famous Earth general. Captain Han had chosen this antique as a gift to show human history and culture. "Are you sure this is a good gift, Captain?" asked Song, her voice quiet with worry. "It's just an old gun." "It shows our journey from simple weapons to space travel," replied Han. "Most species respect that kind of growth." The ship shook slightly. As the docking process completed, everyone straightened their uniforms and took deep breaths. This meeting could change the future of human space exploration forever. The door slid open with a soft hiss. 3 tall, blue-skinned aliens walked into the room. They had 4 arms each and eyes that glowed yellow. The middle alien wore shining metal armor covered in strange symbols. "Greetings," said Captain Han with a small bow. "Welcome to our ship. I am Captain Han of the United Earth Fleet." The translator device on his collar changed his words into the clicking sounds of the alien language. The middle alien, clearly their leader, made clicking sounds back. "I am High Commander Nek of the Mok Empire," said the translator. "We have watched your species for many years. Your technology is adequate." The way he said adequate made it sound like an insult. Lieutenant Song frowned but stayed quiet. "We have brought a gift," said Captain Han, nodding to Song. She stepped forward and opened the wooden box, showing the antique pistol inside. "This weapon is from our history," explained Han. "It is over 300 years old and shows how far we have come as a civilization." High Commander Nek leaned forward to look at the pistol. Then something unexpected happened. He began making sharp clicking sounds and his shoulders shook. The other 2 aliens joined in. They were laughing. "You bring us a chemical explosive device," the translator said between clicks. "We abandoned such primitive tools thousands of years ago." Song's face turned red with embarrassment and anger. Captain Han kept his face calm, but his hands tightened into fists at his sides. "Perhaps you misunderstand," Han said carefully. "This is a cultural artifact, not a suggestion of our current technology." "No, we understand perfectly," replied Nek, still making those laughing clicks. "Your species is still young, perhaps too young to be traveling among the stars." The meeting continued for another hour, but the mood never improved. The Mok aliens kept making comments about primitive humans and their basic technology. When they finally left the meeting room to tour the ship, the human crew let out a collective breath. "They're looking at everything like we're children playing with toys," whispered Technician Park to Song. "Did you see how they laughed at our engine room?" Before Song could answer, alarms began blaring throughout the ship. The emergency lights flashed red, and Captain Han's communicator beeped urgently. "Captain, 3 Mok warships just appeared from nowhere. They're attacking our fleet," shouted the voice of the bridge officer. Han rushed to the nearest computer terminal. The screen showed 3 massive alien ships firing on the human vessels. Their weapons tore through the human ship's shields like they were paper. "It was a trap," Han said grimly. "They never wanted peace talks. They just wanted to study our defenses up close." Suddenly, the ship rocked violently. The lights flickered and everyone grabbed onto something to stay standing. "They've boarded us," shouted Park, looking at the security feed. "They're on deck, 3 and moving up." Captain Han looked around the room quickly, searching for weapons, but the Mok had insisted no armed guards be present at the peace talks. The only weapon in the room was... Han's eyes fell on the wooden box containing the antique pistol. Aliens laughed at ancient human gun until it fired. The ancient pistol sat on the table between them. Lieutenant Song picked it up carefully, feeling its weight in her hands. The wood was dark and smooth from centuries of handling, and the metal parts showed small spots of rust despite careful preservation. "This gun is over 300 years old," she explained to Technician Park, who watched with curious eyes. "It belonged to Admiral Kang during the water wars of the 22nd century. Park leaned closer to examine the weapon. "How does it work?" I've only seen energy weapons in museums. Song turned the pistol over, pointing to different parts with her finger but never touching the trigger. It's called a flintlock pistol. It uses a chemical powder that explodes when ignited. The explosion pushes a small metal ball through a barrel at high speed. The ship's historian, Officer Lee, joined them. He was a short man with glasses and a serious face. That pistol survived one of the bloodiest battles in human history. Admiral Kang used it as a last resort when his ship was boarded. "Why did Captain Han bring something so old to a first contact meeting?" asked Park. Lee sighed. "To show our history and growth as a species. Most advanced civilizations appreciate seeing the journey of another species." The three officers fell, silent as they watched the mock aliens on the security screen. The blue-skinned visitors were examining the ship's engine room, making notes on strange devices, and occasionally making their clicking laugh sounds. "They don't respect us at all," said Song quietly. "They look at everything like we're children playing with toys." Lee nodded. "I've studied first contact protocols for 10 years. This isn't normal behavior. They're not here for friendship." Park's eyes widened suddenly. "Look at what they're doing!" On the screen, one of the smaller mock aliens was placing small discs on various parts of the engine. "Those look like scanning devices." "Or worse," said Lee darkly. "They could be—" The ship's alarms cut him off. Red lights flashed, and the emergency system announced, "Warning! Unknown ships approaching. All crew to battle stations." The three officers rushed to the nearest computer terminal. The screen showed 3 massive mock warships that had appeared, seemingly from nowhere. They were firing on the human fleet with weapons that cut through shields like they weren't even there. "It was never a peace mission," said Lee, his face pale. "They wanted to study us up close before attacking." The ship shook violently as something hit it. The lights flickered and emergency power kicked in. "They've boarded on Deck 5, shouted a voice over the communication system. "Security teams are engaged, but their weapons aren't effective. The aliens have some kind of shield technology." Song looked down at the antique pistol still in her hands. A strange thought crossed her mind. "We need to get to Captain Han," she said suddenly. "And we need to bring this." "The old gun?" Park asked in confusion. "What good will that do against aliens with energy shields?" "I don't know," admitted Song. "But it's technology they've never seen before. Maybe that's important." The three officers moved quickly through the corridors of the ship, heading toward the command center, where Captain Han would be coordinating the defense. Twice they had to hide as groups of mock soldiers passed by, their bodies protected by shimmering energy fields. "Their shields stop our laser weapons completely," whispered Lee after they passed. "It's like they knew exactly what we would use." "They probably did," said Song, "if they've been watching us for years like they claimed." When they finally reached the command center, they found it in chaos. Half the screens were dark, and officers were rushing between stations. Captain Han stood in the center, calmly giving orders despite the desperate situation. "Captain," Song called, approaching him with the antique pistol, "I think this might be important." Han looked at the old weapon, then at the security feeds showing mock soldiers advancing through the ship. Their shields flickered with blue light each time a human weapon hit them, but the aliens remained unharmed. "Why would an outdated weapon help us now?" Han asked, but his eyes showed a spark of interest. "Because it's something they've never seen before," said Song, "something they laughed at. Aliens laughed at ancient human gun until it fired." The ship shook again as another blast hit it. Captain Han gripped the command console tightly, watching the screens show more mock ships appearing around them. The human fleet was badly outnumbered. "Captain, we've lost contact with the Orion and the Stargazer," reported Communications Officer Kang, his voice tight with tension. "The Phoenix reports heavy damage to their engines." Han's face showed no fear, but his knuckles were white as he clenched his fists. "Order all ships to fall back to defensive position Delta. We need to protect the colony ships." Before Officer Kang could relay the orders, the main door to the command center slid open. High Commander Nek walked in with 6 mock soldiers, all protected by shimmering blue energy shields. The aliens' weapons were raised and pointed at the human crew. "No need for retreat orders, Captain Han," said Nek through his translator. "Your fleet will be destroyed regardless of their position." Han stepped forward, placing himself between the aliens and his crew. "We came in peace. Why are you attacking us?" Nek made the clicking sound that humans now recognized as laughter. "Peace? We do not make peace with species that might one day become threats. We study them, learn their weaknesses, and remove them." The alien commander moved around the room, examining the human technology with obvious contempt. His soldiers kept their weapons trained on the crew. "Your weapons are predictable, energy-based, just like every young species develops." Nek touched one of the control panels with his long blue fingers. "Your shields are basic. Your ships are slow." Lieutenant Song stood near the back of the room, the antique pistol hidden behind her back. She caught Captain Han's eye for just a moment, and he gave her the smallest nod. "How many other species have you destroyed this way?" Han asked, trying to keep Nek's attention. 17 in the last 50 cycles, replied Nek proudly. "None presented any challenge. Your kind will be the 18th. The ship shook again as another blast hit it. Several crew members stumbled, but the mock soldiers stood firmly, their perfect balance another sign of their physical superiority. "You, see," said Nek, "your fleet is falling. Soon we will take your colonies, study your resources, and erase humans from history." Captain Han's face showed anger for the first time. "You won't succeed. Humans don't give up easily." Nek made that clicking laugh again. "Brave words from a dying species. Your determination is admirable but useless against our technology." One of the mock soldiers approached Nek and made several clicking sounds. Nek nodded and turned back to Han. "My officer reports that your main engine room is secured. Your weapons, systems are disabled. This ship is now under mock control." Han's shoulders slumped in apparent defeat. "What happens to my crew?" "The valuable ones will be studied," said Nek coldly. "The rest are unnecessary." At those words, 2 mock soldiers raised their weapons and fired without warning. Energy beams struck 2 human officers, who fell to the ground without making a sound. The remaining crew members gasped in horror. "You see how efficient our weapons are?" Nek gestured to the fallen humans. "Quick, painless. We are not cruel." "Lieutenant," Song stepped forward suddenly, her hands still behind her back. "If you're so advanced, why did you laugh at our antique pistol? Were you afraid of it?" Nek turned to her, his yellow eyes narrowing. "Afraid? Of primitive chemical explosion technology? You insult me, human. Then why destroy us if we're so primitive?" Song pressed, taking another step forward. The mock commander clicked to his soldiers, and 2 of them moved toward Song. "Because all species eventually advance. We eliminate threats before they become dangerous." Song brought the antique pistol from behind her back and held it up. "Like this old threat?" Nek made the loudest clicking laugh yet. "You would threaten me with that museum piece, a weapon that fires metal with exploding powder." He spread his arms wide, showing his confidence in his shield. "Even if it still worked after centuries, it would be useless against our defensive technology." Song looked at Captain Han, who nodded again. The human crew tensed, sensing something was about to happen. "Let's find out," said Song quietly, and raised the pistol. Aliens laughed at ancient human gun until it fired. Lieutenant Song held the ancient pistol steady, pointing it at High Commander Nek. The mock leader's yellow eyes showed no fear, only amusement at what he considered a pathetic threat. "Even if that museum piece still works," Nek said through his translator, "our shield technology will stop any projectile. Your modern weapons cannot harm us. What makes you think that ancient toy can?" Officer Lee stepped forward cautiously. "Commander, with respect, I believe you should understand what you're facing." He spoke carefully, trying to buy time as other crew members slowly moved into better positions around the room. "Please educate me about your primitive technology," Nek said with another clicking laugh. Lee nodded. "This weapon is called a flintlock pistol. It was designed over 300 years ago. When the trigger is pulled, a piece of flint strikes against steel, creating sparks." "Fascinating," Nek interrupted sarcastically. "You created fire like children." "The sparks," Lee continued calmly, "ignite black powder, a mixture of charcoal, sulfur, and potassium nitrate. This creates a controlled explosion that propels a lead ball through the barrel." Captain Han watched the exchange carefully. He noticed something interesting. The mock soldiers were paying close attention to Lee's explanation. They seemed genuinely curious about the old technology. The ball travels much slower than modern projectiles, Lee explained, only about 370 meters per second. Modern bullets travel at over 1,200 meters per second. One of the mock soldiers made a series of clicks to Commander Neck. The commander replied with short, sharp clicks that clearly showed irritation. "My science officer asked pointless questions," Neck said. "The speed is irrelevant. Our shields stop all projectiles regardless of velocity." Technician Park, who had been quietly working at a console, spoke up suddenly. "Actually, that might not be true." All eyes turned to Park. The young technician swallowed nervously but continued. "I've been analyzing the energy signatures of your shields. They appear to be calibrated to stop objects moving above a certain speed threshold." Neck's yellow eyes narrowed. "You cannot possibly understand our technology in such a short time." "I don't need to understand it completely," Park replied. "I just need to see the pattern. Your shields create an energy field that identifies fast-moving objects and stops them. But there might be a minimum velocity threshold." Captain Han nodded slowly as understanding dawned. "Your shields are designed to stop modern weapons, high-velocity projectiles and energy beams. They might not register something moving more slowly." For the first time, Neck seemed less confident. He clicked rapidly to his soldiers, who raised their weapons higher. "Enough of this discussion," the mock commander said. "Your theories are irrelevant. You will surrender your ship now, or we will kill more of your crew." Lieutenant Song still held the ancient pistol steady. "Captain, this weapon was loaded for the ceremony. It should still work." Han looked at the old gun with new interest. "Officer Lee, what's the probability that a slower projectile would pass through their shields?" Lee considered the question. "Based on what we've observed and what Technician Park has discovered, I'd say there's a real possibility. Their shields clearly stop our energy weapons, which travel at light speed. They also stop modern bullets, which travel at over 1,200 meters per second. But a lead ball moving at 370 meters per second, that might be below their detection threshold." The mock soldiers shifted uneasily, clearly understanding enough of the conversation to be concerned. Commander Neck made a dismissive clicking sound. "Your primitive understanding of physics is amusing," he said. "Even if your theory had merit, that ancient weapon has not been fired in centuries. It will likely explode in your hand." Song looked at the pistol, then at Captain Han. "Sir, should I try it?" The ship shook again as another blast hit it. The lights flickered, reminding everyone that the battle outside continued while they talked. Han nodded grimly. "We have nothing to lose." Song raised the pistol higher, aiming directly at Commander Neck. The mock leader spread his forearms wide, deliberately making himself a larger target. "Please, human," he said mockingly, "demonstrate your ancient technology. Show us how your ancestors fought their battles." Song's finger tightened on the trigger. Aliens laughed at ancient human gun until it fired. The command center fell silent, as Lieutenant Song stood with the ancient pistol pointed at High Commander Neck. The mock leader's yellow eyes glowed with mockery. His blue skin rippled as he made one final clicking laugh. "Fire your ancient weapon, human," taunted Neck. "Show us all how primitive your species truly is." Song took a deep breath. She steadied her hand and pulled the trigger. For a moment, nothing happened. Then a small spark appeared as the flint struck steel. A fraction of a second later, there was a loud bang and a cloud of white smoke filled the air around Song. The smell of burnt powder spread through the command center. High Commander Neck stood motionless for 3 seconds. His expression changed, from mockery to confusion. Then he looked down at his chest where a small hole had appeared. Blue liquid began to seep from the wound. "Impossible," Neck said, his translator making the word sound flat and lifeless. He reached up with one of his 4 hands and touched the wound. His fingers came away wet with blue blood. The shimmering shield that protected him flickered but remained active around his body. "The shield," he began but couldn't finish. He fell to his knees, his yellow eyes wide with shock. The mock soldiers stared at their fallen commander. They looked at the smoking pistol in Song's hand, then at each other. For the first time they showed fear. Captain Han acted quickly. "All crew, Take cover. The human officers dived behind consoles as the mock soldiers raised their weapons. But something strange happened. The aliens didn't fire. Instead, they backed away slowly, their weapons lowered. One of them approached Commander Neck and bent down. After examining the wound, the soldier made a series of fast, urgent clicks. The other soldiers responded with short clicks that sounded like questions. Officer Lee translated the alien conversation as best he could. "I think they're saying the shield should have stopped the bullet. They don't understand what happened." Captain Han nodded. "Their shields are designed to stop high-speed projectiles and energy weapons, but that old pistol fires a lead ball much slower than modern bullets." "The shield's sensors didn't detect it," added Technician Park excitedly. "It was moving too slowly to trigger their defensive system." The mock soldiers continued their clicking conversation, becoming more agitated. Finally, one of them, clearly the new leader, turned to Captain Han. "How many more of these weapons do you have?" the translator conveyed. Han smiled. "That's just one example of our history. We have many more as surprises." This was a bluff, but the mock soldiers couldn't know that. They looked at each other nervously. The communications console beeped suddenly. Officer Kang checked it and turned to Han with amazement on his face. "Captain, reports are coming in from the fleet. The Phoenix managed to modify their weapons to fire at variable speeds. The slower projectiles are passing right through the mock shields." Han turned to the alien soldiers. "Your invasion has failed. Your shields have a critical weakness that we've discovered. We've already shared this information with our entire fleet." The lead mock soldier made a series of clicking sounds to the others. Without another word, they picked up Commander Neck's body and quickly left the command center. "They're retreating to their ships," reported Officer Kang, watching the security feeds. "All mock boarding parties are withdrawing." Within minutes, the mock ships began to pull away from the human fleet. Their weapons had stopped firing. Lieutenant Song placed the ancient pistol carefully back in its wooden box. Her hands were shaking slightly. "A 300-year-old weapon saved us," she said quietly. "Something so old they thought it wasn't a threat." Captain Han nodded. "They underestimated humans. We may not have their advanced technology, but we have something they don't." "What's that, sir?" asked Technician Park. "History," replied Han, "and the wisdom to learn from it rather than mock it." The human fleet regrouped and watched as the mock ships disappeared into deep space. They had won their first interstellar battle, not with advanced technology, but with an antique pistol that aliens had laughed at, until it fired.